Hello and welcome to the Performance Podcast. I'm not too sure what episode we're on now, we've done quite a few of these. But in this episode we're going to be talking about how to advance your training and why we implement some of the things that we do in the sessions so that you can advance your training. So I wanted to start first of all with something that we call the mind to muscle connection. You've probably heard us speak about it at some point, or Darren himself. And that's pretty much when, let's just say you're training a body part, so the chest in theory. Now someone can look like they're training the chest by just being on the bench or doing a press up or flying, but their mind's somewhere else and they're thinking about something else and they're not actually getting inside the muscle. So it sounds quite intricate and it is exactly that. So it's you're focusing on that exact muscle. You're constantly adjusting to the point where you can feel that muscle is being worked the whole way through. So we talked about this yesterday a little bit in the sessions, like shoulders back, chest out, rib cage out, loads of different other stuff which I don't want to go into too much, but my sole focus is feeling it into that chest. And if there's a point where I lose attention, I know that that muscle isn't being worked. So I'm just constantly zoning on that to make sure that I get the most out of that specific exercise. So what do you want to say on that, Joe?
Yeah, I think when you're any body part really, innit, you've always got to focus on that area, on that specific area. Tense, the muscles around it to get better connection, better squeeze, better contraction. And just really zone in on where you're working and focus on what you're doing. And that can go across the board, even on the functional side of things. You've got to focus on exactly that, especially with the boxing stuff. You've got to focus on the technique. You can't be thinking about, your day-to-day life, what you're doing at work, or, stuff that's going on at home. You just got to be in that zone and, target in it.
Yeah, you go to the gym to relieve stress, lose weight, gain muscle, whatever you're trying to do. So what Joe's saying is, don't think about anything else, but don't just think about the gym or maybe what's going on in and around it. Get into whatever you're doing it. Like you just said there, whether you're doing boxing or doing a bit of functional or specifically hypertrophy, in this case like arms, you're squeezing it, you're tensing up, you're making that muscle work as hard as you can. In the gym, it's one of the only things where actually doing something and trying to do it the hard way will get you the better result. So that's essentially what we talk about when we say the mind to muscle connection, going inside the muscle and thinking about it when you're training it. What do you want to say on that, Harry?
Yeah, of course. And before coming here, I wasn't too experienced in hypertrophy. I mean, I've done a little bit in the past, mostly strength-based training around, obviously, my boxing. But I think it takes a little while. You have to develop the muscle slightly first. So you'll probably say you're working your chest. You'll probably even if you have the technique right, it's still going to take you about. I'd say it probably took me between 5 to 10 proper sessions before I could really get a good connection with my chest.
Yeah.
I'd have to do a couple warm-up sets, really zone out, close my eyes, get everything in position first, right, shoulders back, chest out, make sure my elbows are in the right place, make sure I'm pulling from the right place. And yeah, over time, after you've sort of developed the muscle a little bit more, you can definitely start to feel it. And then from there, as long as you focus on that warm-up set, I find that those first couple of sets, they're crucial. You have to really focus and dial in and zone all your attention, just block everything else out, and focus on the tension in the muscle. And there, from there on, each session gets better. I find out every time I do chest or arms, arms are pretty easy to connect with, but chest or anything like that, it develops more the more sessions I do. Yeah. So God knows what it's going to feel like in a year's time once I've done. Yeah.
Constantly learning different things and new principles, and like Harry said, there's a good point. As the certain muscles that are slightly larger start to develop more, like your chest and your back, you'll start to get a better connection with it, and that's why the warm-up sets, like Harry just said there, are so important, because you're just priming that muscle up. You're connecting with that certain exercise. You can't just go straight into a muscle group and not think about it and not get blood into it and actually warm it up and expect to get a good pump or actually get the most out of the workout, because it's not going to happen. So when it's touching on some things as well that we do in a session, some people possibly wonder why we do it. So why do we do certain things like pulses, and stuff like that?
Like we always say, we're all about taking that muscle to its full fatigue. So just because you can't full range rep it anymore doesn't mean that muscle is completely fatigued. We'll get you to pump it for a few times to ensure that muscle has been taken from, right from the very start all the way through to its absolute fatigue, and then we'll get you to hold it on the top of that to, again, just make sure that muscle's fully fatigued and that you're going to get the most out of that exercise or that sort of routine workout that we're doing. So always, we try and take that muscle to fatigue every single time, and that will maximise, long-term results. Yeah. So
yeah, essentially, pulsing. It's just like we've all done it before. It's pretty much a quarter rep, not even that, pretty much. So it's just partial little reps, depending on what you're doing. It can be from the top, the middle to the bottom. It will be different every single time. And when you're essentially struggling to do a full range repetition, a lot of people think that the rep's done there, don't they? They stop and think, that muscle fatigued, I can't do any more. There's always something more you can do in there, like a little pulse. So because your muscles are fatigued and they're tired, because they should be at this point, it's going to be hard, but because you're limiting your range, you'll be able to do it. You might not be able to do one full rep, but that's why we, again, talking about advancing the training, we pulse it at certain points. So what's some of the things that we do, Harry? Like a hold. You quite like doing the pushing forward and holding with your biceps and stuff like that, didn't you?
Yeah, 100%. And like I learned from Darren, since I've been here and over time, I'm playing about myself when I've been training. I mean, you won't be able to translate these things across to people confidently and correctly unless you play about and you train every day yourself. Okay, the knowledge takes a bit of time to build up. And it's just little things like figuring out how the muscles work and where the muscles at its shortest and where it's at its longest. So like say when I'm doing, like a good example, when I do my shoulder raise, I remember playing about with it one day and then I implemented it in, it works a treat. So you're raising the shoulder, like the dumbbells up or the bar, whatever you've got, and then you're leaning forward and then raising the arms up even more. That shortens the muscle even more, makes force-sits contract even more, and it gives out pretty instantaneously, generally when you do that after a set of reps. Yeah, also another thing, working on neck.
It's happened again, don't worry, it's just a little inside joke. Whenever Harry seems to talk, there's always like a tractor or something else, or a tank, I think it was last time, so not really for Kenny.
No, it's alright, I'm back where I was. Yeah, also, instead of changing the angle, which is also going to put more tension in the muscle, you can work on the negative. So you might be able to pull something up, you might not be able to pull something up rather, but you can there's still power in that negative. Okay, so on the way down, you can force the rep up and then slowly come down. You're still going to get muscle growth by doing that. That's going to work the muscle to its full capability. Yeah.
Muscles are constantly, our body as well is constantly adapting to things that you do for it. You do like the same routine, unless you're doing like sort of like a progressive overload sort of thing where alright, you are going up in weight, but essentially doing the same exercises. That's alright. But when you're doing the same old thing in terms of like people say, how many sets should we do? There's no correct set. It's however much that muscle takes to fatigue essentially after you've done like maybe 1, 2, 3 exercises and actually warm-up sets, and then you're ready, and you should always be looking to take that muscle to full fatigue as long as you're not in the maintenance phase. But that's why we start incorporating things like supersets and drop sets. So what's type of superset and drop set, Sean? What do we do with that?
Yeah, so with supersets we'll include 2 exercises back to back. So you might do maybe a tricep kickback and then straight into a press up on the floor, and that will be supersetting 2 different exercises together. If we're on, say, on a squat rack and we've got maybe 20 either side and we're doing that, say like 10 or 12 reps, you'll then drop it down by maybe like 5 kilos, go down to 15, and then you'll slowly drop down in weight, and your reps, you'll get a few more reps out. Yeah. So if you can't rep it anymore at 20 kilograms, lock it in and then you'll take a bit off, continue on, can't do that anymore, drop it a little bit, and then you'll just keep going, and again that falls back into taking that muscle again straight to full fatigue. So
yeah, it really helps with like strength and conditioning, endurance, and it's also really good as well for time. So yeah. I don't know if you do anything outside of here, but if you go to another gym and you're quite pushed for time, supersetting things is a really good means of a tool to just really fatigue that muscle, get the best out of the workout, and when you're on limited time. We don't do it to kind of like rush around in the sessions, but it's like at the same time, we do want to give you the best workout possible. So sometimes we might slow things down and go a little bit more in depth with our analysis, and sometimes we might just start to, like Joe said there, superset, drop sets, I mean even like giant sets as well.
Yeah.
Giant sets as well. Do you do them? You do them with boxing sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. So you'd have like multiple exercises. within one sort of set, and you would do multiple sets. But yeah, I think the best thing is just changing it up.
Yeah.
Like,
Body adapt.
that's all I do. That's all I do in my training. I try my best to sort of trick myself, like trick my body and shock the system. That's in inclusion. That's what you want to do. You need to shock the body in order for it to adapt. And sometimes if you get into a pattern and a certain way of training, your body adapts to it. It's very intelligent, and it will adapt pretty quick. So if you always do supersets and you always superset the same exercises, you ain't gonna see many results after a little while. You will see a little boost at the start when you first start doing it, and then that will quickly, the body will learn it, and it will quickly sort of adapt. So you really need to change it up now and again.
Yeah, just that, shocking your central nervous system, shocking your muscle into some form of response. Obviously you want to put it under stress so it tears and it recovers and it grows back stronger, bigger, whatever it may be. But by keeping your training varied, like Harry says, it's such things like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's certain exercises that you'll always go back to, or will always go back to, because it works quite well. But you should keep your training varied to a degree, and again, just keep that body from guessing pretty much. Like if you've got the same thing, you always go over and you do exactly the same piece of equipment and you go do it and do that, and it's exactly the same, the body will adapt very, very quickly. Like Harry said, it's a very, very clever bit of kit. So yeah, there's so many different intricate parts that we could talk about for ages and ages. There's so many different principles to training, and you should never, you'll constantly be learning. I mean, we are as well. We're very lucky to have Darren as well around us, who's very, very knowledgeable. But you should always constantly just be learning and ask us questions. You know, why are we doing this? Why do we do that? Should I be pulling from here? If I pull from here, and you're like, oh, okay, some things as well, like Claire as well, Claire Waller. I remember she was doing something, and like I was like, oh, that's really good. I don't even think she realised she was doing it. I mean, I don't know, maybe she did. But it was like, yeah, that's really good, Claire. You're doing this because of this. I can't remember what she was doing. Maybe she opened up her hands doing something, but I remember it, and I know Darren did as well. But like tweak things as well. We say, do this, do that. Because we're talking about, we've got to class you as a general rule of thumb, but if you feel it a little bit more by maybe driving your elbow, say, back further on the tricep extension and just making this up for the time being, or maybe just lifting your elbows a little bit higher, and you're actually feeling that and you're not injuring yourself, whether it be like a press up or whatever, I don't know, and you feel it more, that's fine. No one person's the same, so
everyone's different.
Constantly, tweak things and see how it goes and see if you're feeling it a little bit more. And again, that's where mind to muscle connection comes in. You're constantly adjusting, putting yourself in the right position. That doesn't feel quite right, I'll change this. And then you feel it a lot more. So the more you start to progress in your training, the more you should start to ask more questions and just be more mindful and want to get the most out of it, pretty much. So, yeah, I think that's it, boys.
Yeah.
Got anything more to say, Harold?
No.
No, he's all out of words.
Happy days.
That tractor put him off. Right. We'll see you soon for another episode of the Performance Podcast.
Have a good weekend.
Yep.
Nice one.
That's good, boy.